Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers, on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every fortnight we pick a film topic. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, and we battle it out in 3 categories: directing, acting, and screenplay, and we score them out of 10 to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time, according to 2 film geeks from Wiltshire, England. Enjoy! In today's pod, we'll be talking Spider-Man films. Boaz, what is your pick for Spidey Adventures?
Into the Spider-Verse.
Cool. Was that Spider-Man's first animated film, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, the first one in the cinemas, yeah.
Yeah. And my pick is Spider-Man 2 from 2004. Yes, it's that old now.
Crazy.
I picked Spider-Man 2 because I think growing up, I was a teenager through the noughties, and the big movies, you know, in the early noughties were like Lord of the Rings, X-Men, and the Spider-Man films. And, you know, I just loved this film when it came out in the cinema. How about you? Did you love it?
Oh, yeah, I loved it. I loved it a lot. It's definitely one of my favourite superhero movies at the time. I thought it was amazing. Still do think it's really good. And it's kind of like, became sort of the benchmark of which other Spider-Man films are sort of, are measured against. You know, everybody brings up Spider-Man 2, yeah.
Hopefully we might see, well, there's been a lot of talk of, you know, all 3 Spider-Men in the same movie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Which could be weird.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Garfield, Maguire, and Holland.
Oh man, I think that would be amazing. They need to do a real live action. And also, what was it? Jamie Foxx reprising his role as Electro.
Yeah.
I don't know if this means like a rebooted Electro that happens to be played by Jamie Foxx, or it's literally the same Electro from Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah. So
if that's the case, they should bring back Alfred Molina as Dr. Octopus. Just have Dr. Octopus. Just have him show up as Dr. Octopus. I think that would be brilliant.
So we'll talk acting first in Spider-Man 2. I think standout performance for me is still J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson.
Amazing, yeah.
I mean, there's a reason why they brought him back for the end of Far From Home.
Yeah, and he was
extraordinary performance.
He was sorely missed in, the Amazing Spider-Man series. Oh man, I kind of
was he even in those?
He wasn't in them.
Really?
No, he wasn't in the Amazing Spider-Man. Even what was it? Peter Parker hadn't even become a photographer in those films. I think at the end of the second one, he had sent some photos to the Bugle website or something.
Oh, really?
And so he gets an email from J. Jonah Jameson, but I do miss actual J. Jonah Jameson, and J.K. Simmons, the one, the only.
Tobey Maguire, I think looking back, I can't help but just think he's quite, like, dorky. I just feel like Tom Holland and even Andrew Garfield have a lot more personality to Peter Parker. You know, he certainly does some of the moves as Spider-Man. There's no doubt about that. And obviously that a lot of it is part CG.
Yeah. What, do you think he comes off a bit too whiny or what?
I mean, certainly the scenes where, I feel annoyed that I'm saying this when this is my pick. But I just hadn't seen this film in a long time. But I just think some of the scenes between him and Kirsten Dunst's Mary Jane is a bit cringe. I was like, really? You just don't have characters like that now.
I always felt like she was.
It's definitely a film of its time. I know it's only the noughties, but
I always felt like she was way out of his league. He is really kind of awkward.
I know he's meant to be.
He is meant to be. I mean, he is a geek. I actually do think, from like a classic Spider-Man view of just like him being the everyman, him being like just like the kind of geek, the odd one out sort of thing. He does a good job in that. Like, you can see
maybe
that he is a
too
nerd.
Old now. Looking back at it.
But I do like, the character can be quite whiny, but I think in that film, especially in Spider-Man 2, so much goes wrong with his life, and I do think that's kind of like the appropriate response of just being like, for fuck's sake. No, so he does get a bit teary-eyed and dopey most of the thing, but it's like so much goes wrong for him in that film. You do feel very sorry for him, especially, and then it's like he starts smiling and being like more corny when he quits being Spider-Man, you know, and he's been sad for the whole of the movie before that, and it kind of makes you I do feel sorry for Spider-Man. It's like, what if he just didn't? You know, the film could have ended so much differently if he just he didn't have to be a superhero at the end. He could have just.
But I think one outstanding performance for me is Alfred Molina as Doc Ock. I think he's great. You know, very charming, you know, scientist, and then I think he just plays it great. I think.
Yeah. Don't you find it funny? Like, I find Dr. Octopus really menacing, but I think it was kind of like, it's almost like a 180 in characterization from the beginning, because he's like, you know... Well,
he's kind of been taken over
teacher,
by...
by the arms, yeah. And it's like, even when he kills the people in the hospital, he wakes up and he's like, absolutely like, what the hell? And he's even thinking of killing himself, and he's like... But then, as soon as the arms take control, he is a freaking megalomaniac. He's like so much like, you know, just sounds like a supervillain. Just everything he says, you know.
Certainly, like a lot of Doc Ock.
I will peel the flesh from her bones.
Yeah, that's one of my favourite lines.
Yeah, it's like Jesus Christ.
Certainly, in the new Spider-Man game, you know, they're all kind of basing that performance on Molina in 2002 for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like as I said, like the 180 flip of caring, kind of like very intellectual, sort of arrogant scientist who's kind of like almost like Peter's role model, you know, and to just an absolute fruitcake, you know.
But one of my favourite performances in this film actually is from Rosemary Harris, who plays Aunt May. She's the heart and soul of this film, for sure. There's always a great moment towards the end of the second act, beginning of the third, of when, you know, Peter is confessing to Aunt May about what really happened to Uncle Ben. That was just a great emotional performance by both of them, actually. You know, we're knocking Tobey Maguire a bit, but he definitely can do the emotional stuff really well. Yeah. And that scene is quite... It goes there, you know. It's quite emotional, certainly for a comic book film. You know, you don't see that very often in a lot of modern ones.
Yeah.
Just that a very understated scene about telling the truth, you know, to your family.
Yeah, I love the film. I always find it funny, though, like with the action scenes. I do like the action scenes as well. I think they're some of my favorite in the series. But I always found them a bit like, I wish there was an extra scene of just him coming to terms with the fact that Dr. Octopus was a bad guy.
Yeah,
he never seems to do that.
No.
And I always found that like really strange. He only sort of acknowledges it at the end. But you've got at the beginning, he gets on really well with him. He's trying to impress him, and he's getting advice on you know, women from him. And as soon as he becomes Dr. Octopus, he cracks jokes and tries to kill him. Like, it just seems like he threw a car
those
door.
arms, man, they got some personality.
He threw a car door at him, but he doesn't say, dude, why are you robbing a bank? He just starts throwing like sacks of gold at him. It's like, what the hell? To me, I think it could have been. I love the action scene, but it could have benefited from a bit of a, you know,
I
spit
guess,
take of what are you doing?
I guess it was the nature of how comic book movies were made at that time.
Yeah,
they were very much sticking to the comic aspects, I guess, of the characters and the stories they were trying to tell on the big screen.
Yeah. Also, I suppose they might
not
have
terribly nuanced.
Yeah.
You know?
I suppose they might have also been like, you know, Peter's going through enough right now that he's focusing on about, like, you know, his money and his girlfriend and all this other stuff. Let's not have him having some, like, you know, stuff about his mentor turning evil or something.
Yeah, a bit too much.
Yeah, a bit much.
Well, what do you reckon about James Franco then?
James Franco really hams it up. It's like, I think he does an all right job.
Yeah. I think he doesn't get as much to do in this one as he did the first one, I don't think. The scene between him and Spider-Man when he takes the mask off is quite, well, a tad disappointing, I guess, because that was the whole thing in the marketing, I remember, going into the film. And he just, gets out of the chains really quick, and he's like, oh, okay. So just taking his mask off, it's woken him up.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And, and he's like, you killed my father. You'd think that...
I think he's still very convincing.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
I'm not sure he has enough material, really, to work with. But it's a shame.
My favourite scene with Harry Osborn in that is where they set it up for him for Spider-Man 3.
Oh, yeah, the reveal.
Yeah. And where he's talking to his dad in the mirror. I thought that was really cool, especially because you get to have William Dafoe again.
Oh, yeah. Anytime William Dafoe is in a film, it's a joy to be on.
Yeah. Because what was it? As I said before, I like Dr. Octopus, but his villainy is more it's more restrained. Like, he doesn't laugh like a crazy person, and he doesn't, shout and all that. But William Dafoe in Spider-Man 1 was a complete lunatic. He was like Marvel's Joker, and it was great that he shows up just to listen.
It's a shame, really, that they only bring him back for that one scene. I kind of wish he kind of came back to haunt Harry Osborn a bit more in this film.
Yeah, that would have been good.
So acting for you overall?
I don't know, maybe a 7 or a 6, maybe a 6.
6?
Yeah, or 6.5. I quite like it, but I do...
No halves, solid numbers.
I do like it, as I said, it's still one of my favourite Spider-Man films, but it's like, the acting to me isn't like the strong point in that film.
No, yeah.
And
I think certainly in the noughties, the spectacle was definitely the thing you went to see.
I went for him to fight Dr. Octopus. The train fight is still hands down one of the best.
So for me, acting, I'd probably go with a 7 as well. Rosemary Harris really is the heart of the film. And,
I think she's probably
Alfred Molina is great as well.
Yeah, and the tiny bits we get of William Dafoe. Well, the tiny bit we got of William Dafoe. He should have been in it more. I think that would have been better.
So should we go screenplay then?
Screenplay. I think there were a lot of really good ideas. I think probably the most solid sort of idea in the film is Spider-Man really struggling with the idea of whether he should even be Spider-Man. I think that's the central thing in that. It ends up being a choice, and I quite like that. Yeah. He is Spider-Man, and life is absolute hell. He chooses not to be. He's having a great time, but the city is suffering. And then,
that scene where, Peter comes to help.
In the fire.
Aunt May. No, when he goes to help Aunt May with the kid moving house because she's got no money to stay in that house anymore. Has always stayed with me, and I always get a little, tickle in my throat because it's quite emotional when she just says, there's a hero in all of us.
Yeah.
That whole scene is always stayed with me for some reason.
I found, where he saves that little girl from the fire.
Yeah.
That was him, being confronted with the choice again and, choosing to be Spider. He didn't have to do that. And then after he saved that little girl, I like where goes, oh, did you save everybody? He overhears the, fire department guys. And they're like, oh, some poor sod, burnt on the 5th floor. And you just think that's, in his mind, a snap of, I've been doing the wrong thing here, just remembering why he got into it in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, it's not complex stuff at all.
No.
In the scheme.
No. But I think it is a sort of good reminder that, Spider-Man isn't, forced into this sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's a responsibility that he...
I guess it's basically, a story of where does his priorities lie in terms of dreams and responsibility.
Yeah, I think it takes him as more of a person, that's... do you know what I mean? Things are put on hold because of this career. And he needs some time to breathe.
And as I said before, you know, some of the lines between Mary Jane and Peter Parker aren't the best. I'm just like, no one would talk like this in real life.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh.
Yeah.
You would literally, if you saw Mary Jane, you know, there's a scene where they chat between the fence, you know, because they're neighbours, I think.
Yeah.
And you would literally just put the trash out and go, quick, straight back in the house, but you wouldn't have that weird conversation. But
Yeah.
as we said, Jonah Jameson is great, and there's a really cool Doctor Strange reference, which I never picked up before, ever, in watching it. Probably because I'm more aware of Doctor Strange now.
Yeah.
But, you know, they're talking about what to call this new villain. Jameson says, Doctor Strange. Oh, no, that's already taken. I was like, oh, really? There's a Doctor Strange in this universe?
That's
Hell
brilliant. Yeah, that is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Well, pretty much most people in the audience just, you know, tumbleweed through that bit.
Yeah, because nobody's heard of.
But now,
It's-
going back, it's like, oh,
Yeah, no,
cool.
it's amazing like how many of the characters have become sort of household names now because of the
Another
MCU,
great
so-
line, you mentioned it as well, when Doc Ock confronts Peter Parker after he's just chucked a car at him.
Yeah, not the most subtle way to get someone's attention. Also, like he's told by Harry Osborn that that's his only lead to Spider-Man, and he throws like a car at him. What the hell?
Yeah, a bit dangerous.
Yeah, it's a bit dangerous.
You need to question the guy, dude.
Exactly. It's lucky he has a spider sense.
But he says, wasn't it, Peter threatens him. No. How does it go?
Well, he comes in and he wants like he wants him to find Spider-Man. And he's like,
Tell me where Spider-Man is, or I'll peel the flesh off her bones.
Yeah, that's really
It's
good.
like, whoa, that's
That's really
dark.
Yeah, that was really dark. Actually, talking about dark, where he kills all the doctors, that is some straight up horror stuff. That is some horror stuff, like where he drags.
I'll talk about that in the directing bit. That's really cool.
That's so out of tone with the rest of the film. Like, man, that terrified the hell out of me.
So screenplay, what do you want to give it?
Yeah, screenplay. Yeah, maybe a 7 or an 8. 7. Yeah, I'll give it a 7. Yeah.
I'm probably going to go a tad lower just because of those scenes between Jane and Peter Parker are just a bit like, oh, really? Just run now. So I'm going to give it a 6, I think.
Okay.
So directing, I think this is a great action film, first and foremost.
Yeah.
The train fight, especially, still holds up today.
It does. It still looks incredible.
I guess some of the CG is a bit dodgy now, but I think you really have to look closely to notice that.
Well, I think, what was it? I think one of the unfortunate things is because Dr. Octopus doesn't wear like a mask, whereas Spider-Man does, he's much easier to CGI. And Dr. Octopus is not so much. So there are some scenes where just before he gets hit, you know, you do notice that this is not Alfred Molina. This is like,
but it's so well choreographed. The way, you know, there's a bit where, you know, Spider-Man gets flung high in the air, and you know he makes himself small to go through a bridge.
That was brilliant.
You know, the fencing of the bridge, which is great.
Yeah.
You know, whole fighting on the side of the train, swings.
Do you remember
it's just so well choreographed?
Do you remember the bank fight scene?
Yeah,
where he he steals Aunt May. Yeah, that was great, and they fight on the side of the building. That was
she
amazing.
just drops onto the ledge.
Yeah. I love when he's climbing up together and then boom, you know, get on his shoulder, and then they tumble and fall down, and he's just kicking the crap out of Dr. Octopus as they're falling down.
Yeah,
that was amazing.
Quite. I mean, the violence is quite brutal in this.
It is. No, but
certainly compared to the Holland ones.
Yeah, but this is the this is the thing I was saying. It's like I would have liked it to have been acknowledged at some point, and it is one of my peeves that it wasn't. That, you know, Peter should feel something for this guy. He is just turning
I guess so.
into, you know, dough. It should have just been...
You wanted more, like, interaction.
Yeah, between him and... Yeah, especially because the fights are full on. Like, you think, you know, the scenes before they fight with him and Dr. Octopus is like, you know, Dr. Octopus. But before, it was like, this guy's your mentor, so you should feel something really strong. But then you have the setup to the fights where it doesn't seem personal. And then the fighting itself, like, Spider-Man is laying into him. It would have made more sense to me if, like, they kind of drummed up you betrayed me, you know. So it would make sense why he's going.
Yeah,
So
I guess that relationship is certainly better in the game that they did.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and especially when you do kick the crap out of Doctor Octopus, it feels good because you feel like you know how could you? Even the relationship they did get, they could have still evoked more passion from Peter when he became Doctor Octopus. It could have been like instead, like the first time he meets him, he just jokes around, you know.
Yeah, I get I think that's why Spider-Man films and the comics are so popular because you can be so creative with the action with Spider-Man movies.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the web slinging, and I think it's just just physically, it's just a great spectacle to see a Spider-Man fighting a guy with 4 mechanical massive arms.
Yeah, I definitely want another Doctor Octopus in a
live action
film. Yeah, another live action Doctor Octopus.
Yeah.
Yes, it's
and
just
also
so much going on.
It's not all CGI at all. Certainly, with all the grounded, some of the grounded stuff.
Well, they had puppets.
It's all puppeteered. I remember in the DVD, there's an Easter egg of
Oh, was it him dancing?
Yeah, dancing. I can't remember what the song was.
Oh, If I Was a Rich Man.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah, that was hilarious.
That was brilliant.
Yeah, you can probably find it on YouTube now.
Yeah. They named the arms as well. It was like
Did
Flo,
they?
Yeah, Flo, Mo, Joe, and
What, during the filmmaking?
yeah.
Oh.
So they would know which ones to move. Flo, Mo.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Because they had this certainly like snake-like sound effects for them.
Oh,
didn't they?
yeah.
Which was quite fun.
I thought it was weird how one of them basically spoke with the... It was like a puppet. That was weird. Like a sock puppet.
I quite like that.
I thought that was weird.
Just some of the moments where, like, the arm takes his sunglasses off.
Oh man, the arms are literally amazing. Because what was it when they do stuff like that? They got a tiny little hand.
One of my favourite bits is when
it's brilliant that comes out.
Is when Harry Osborn is on the
and
balcony of his apartment. But Doc Ock, when he arrives, he knocks him over, but then he catches his whiskey with one of the arms. That was pretty funny.
That was funny.
But one of my favourite scenes in the film is the surgery scene. All the arms are in, the blue linen, and he's on the table. And the surgeon... Yeah, the surgeon's got the chainsaw ready to cut it off, and then you just hear see a little movement from one of the arms as it's dangling on the cables.
Yeah. And then what was it?
All hell breaks loose.
Well, basically, he looks at one of the other doctors and sees the arm behind his head, like in her, in the reflection. Yeah, because he's like, "What the fuck?" And then it's like,
and it's a true like horror scene.
Oh my god! Yeah.
It's quite dark. Yeah. And I swear there's an Evil Dead 2 reference in there with the chainsaw, trying to cut it off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was insane. I don't know how that got...
Yeah.
That was allowed. That was greenlit. And how I was able to be in the cinema. But that was crazy. Like, really, in retrospect, that was insane. Like, arms are going through torso. Doesn't he pick up somebody and electrocute them with the... It gets really... Somebody's, like, screaming and, like, dragging on the...
Sam Raimi must have been like, am I allowed to do this?
Too late.
He's definitely bringing his...
his horror,
his
horror references and stuff like that.
Into this film.
Yeah. Definitely his horror direction.
And I'm so pleased for Sam Raimi that he's got the Doctor Strange 2 gig.
Yeah.
Because he's such a great director. He really is one of the most creative directors around, I would say, and he hasn't been given the chance too much in recent years, I don't think. But yeah, I'm pleased he's doing that one.
Yeah.
One thing I do like is the music. I think the music is still really iconic. That the opening music in the film through the credits is great.
I love when Spider-Man comes back, where he nicks his costume
from
J. Jonah Jameson, and then Spidey swings through a news bulletin that he's back. Where they put the giant broadsheet, he's back, and he just swings straight through it. That was phenomenal.
I still think it's probably still my favourite suit, I reckon.
Yeah, it's a really good
Spider-Man's.
suit. Yeah.
It's just classic. Brilliant.
It does look really good, yeah.
So directing, what score would you give it?
I'd give it maybe a higher score actually for the directing. Maybe an 8 or something.
8, yeah. Yeah, I'm going to go 8 as well. I think it's certainly the train fight still holds up.
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah,
I think it's great.
And how about like all the giant sun, stuff? And
well,
just a lot of really good stuff in there.
I think also what I love about the Raimi Spider-Mans, you do get a stronger sense of vulnerability than the other ones, because you see all the cuts and the scars.
Oh yeah. I like that he gets a lot of battle damage in the films. Yeah,
that's part of the reason probably why I like the suit more, because it shows his vulnerability, and it does kind of show, even though it doesn't look like it's homemade, but it does in a way the fact that you see all the cuts, and all the other ones, you don't really see any of that.
Yeah.
It's like impregnable bullet armor suits.
Yeah. No, he does sustain quite a lot of damage.
So it kind of does suggest that he has made it himself. I mean, in the first one, there's hardly anything of it. In the first...
man. Yeah, no, in the first one, he gets a true ass whooping, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Like, he's barely got none of his costume.
I mean, that is pretty brutal.
That was really brutal, yeah. Yeah, Green Goblin really
for a Spider-Man film.
Did kick the crap out of him.
Yeah, so I would say 8 out of 10. Yeah. So, let's do the scores. Tally it up, and it is 42. All right, we'll move on to your choice now, Boaz, which is...
Into the Spider-Verse. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, that's, I think, now in my number 1 spot for my favourite Spider-Man film.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I just think it's a phenomenally well-directed film, and it's just amazing on every level.
So should we talk screenplay first?
Yeah, let's talk to the screenplay. Yeah, I think the
screenplay.
Yeah, talk to the screenplay. No, I'd rather talk to the screenplay.
Right.
Just say sweet nothings in its ear. But yeah, no, I think the screenplay is really good. I think the film, by and large, did surprise me quite a lot in how much I did like it.
I think a lot of people, because I think when it was first announced by Sony, that they're going to make a animated Spider-Man film.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, huh?
Yeah, exactly. I was kind of like that as well. And then also it wasn't going to be based on really Peter Parker, but some other kid who's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Again, you go, And then also when I actually initially saw the animation, I wasn't that impressed with it because it looked really choppy.
Yeah.
As well.
Well, no, I don't think anyone has really seen this type of style before.
Yeah.
The closest thing would be anime. Possibly.
Yeah. I think it does definitely have like this sort of grainy, like paper feel. Like it's like, it is written, it's drawn,
straight out of pages.
Straight out of pages. Itself, exactly. Yeah. And, but it has that kind of 3D look to it, but it does seem sort of like it's drawn. I think the animation is a lot better than it was in the trailer. I think they tidied it up. And generally, the screenplay I really liked. So it introduces an entirely different character, Miles Morales, as, Spider-Man. It sets up an origin story for him. It makes him quite funny and sort of relatable. And with, embarrassing parents and, school life and all this stuff, he's quite a brilliant kid. And it kind of goes into high gear very quickly of him, like, getting his powers and meeting other Spider-Men from a different, multiverse. It goes through loads of villains, especially, like, the Kingpin and...
new version of Dr. Octopus.
A new version of Dr. Octopus, which is amazing. Like, one of the best reveals I've ever,
I've
seen
in
Spider.
Well.
Yeah, I thought that was an incredible reveal. Because, they tend to do this a lot of, like, changing characters, and having a lot of female representation, which I'm fine with. And I didn't really see this as pandering. Yeah, I saw it as a genuinely good surprise. Like seriously, it didn't seem like a what would you say, like a gimmick or something like that. Because it was more like you'd seen this character in the back of some movie that they were watching in school about science, and you saw her around the Kingpin and all this, and when they break into the facility.
I think that's my favourite scene.
It's so funny. It's so funny. And then it was like, all of a sudden, it just makes sense where she's like, Olivia Octavius, yeah? And then you're like, did I hear that right? And then the arms come down. And to me, it's just like, it was a surprise, but it felt like, wow, that makes so much sense. Like, do you know what I mean? She's a geeky scientist who's obsessed with Spider-Man and works for... It makes so much sense. I just thought it was great. I thought it was a hell of a reveal.
I just love the interplay between Miles and Parker.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's just...
Like, we don't need the monitor.
Exactly. But it's just one of those things. There's so much in that film. Like, you have so many different Spider-Men, each with their own little, faults and stuff. Gwen Spider-Man, and they all have their own little stories and their own personalities.
Yeah.
You have, Miles that you've set up. Again, not the original Spider-Man. Nobody knows him, the audience. You're meant to care, you're made to care for him. He's got this whole arc going on. He's got
I mean, the relationship between him and his dad is very charming. And,
yeah, it is. And even between and like between his uncle as well. Like he can't, his dad kind of embarrasses him. Yeah, and he really gravitates to his uncle. And then even that whole twist.
What's his character name again?
Which
the villain?
The Prowler.
The Prowler, yeah.
He looks really good. He looks scary as hell. And then when he's chasing him and stuff, and then that was a hell of a twist that it's the uncle.
Yeah, I mean, his animation, it was fantastic, I thought. Yeah. The whole purple streaks and things.
Yeah. But, you've got so much, as I said, so much in there. You've got amazing action scenes. You've got so many characters. You've got so many villains. You've got so much plot going on. You've got end of the world scenario. You've got, like, the Kingpin and his stuff. You've got all this comedy.
Such a clever idea of, like, the interdimensional, like, breach type thing.
And also, they set that up really quickly of, like, why is the Kingpin doing this? And a very short flashback, which doesn't feel like that forced, and you, like, completely get what he's about. It makes sense. It's, like, quite sympathetic. And it just seems like there was so much in that film. But it doesn't feel, like, too rushed or, like, too breakneck. And it's just crazy because of the time limit of the film is like even less than like a regular feature film. I just thought the pacing was really good, and
I think
especially how much stuff they managed to put in.
One of the things I loved about it is when they introduced all the new Spider people, and they like going through their backstory and like, and one more time.
I like that. Yeah, that was great.
Explain how I got bit again.
Yeah.
And they even, what I loved as well, they didn't mind taking the piss about previous ones when they, when there's that great bit in when they reference Spider-Man 3.
Oh yeah, his dancing thing. Yeah.
Oh, and I did this.
I'm not proud of that. Yeah. And
I don't think any other film. I can't think of another film that has like referenced a previous film in its own franchise, taking the piss out of it.
Yeah.
And it's like
really
that's
because they even reproduce a lot of the famous scenes, like of stopping the train and just a bunch of things. Yeah, it's quite amazing. And I like the other Peter Parker. The Peter Parker I love
blonde or brown hair.
The brown hair one. The blonde one, I don't think. The blonde-haired one didn't really get so much screen time or really any much character development. He was almost like the ideal. Do you know what I mean? He was kind of like the sort of Jesus figure that they were aspiring to be, but you don't really know a great deal about him. Do you know what I mean?
Because this was produced...
just meant to be like the most amazing.
By Phil Lord and Chris Miller.
But I like how regular Peter Parker, the brown-haired one, that's teaching him, he's just not got his shit together at all.
And Phil Lord helped write it, I think. Who did Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs and the 22 Jump Street and 21 Jump Street film. Yeah. You can definitely feel that type of humour in this film. It's great.
Yeah, definitely.
That kind of silliness in there, but just like really quippy that suits their sensibility so well in a Spider-Man movie.
Yeah. I love it when he bumps into the other version of Mary Jane and they're pretending to be like waiters and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, brilliant. I'm so sorry. I'll try harder. Like the breath, because she doesn't have any breath.
It's the only film where they kind of explore deep into their relationship of Mary Jane and Spider-Man. The only film they really do that.
Yeah.
I think they may have done it in Spider-Man 3, but they didn't really go into it that much at all. But the whole.
But it's so funny because it goes deep into the relationship, but you don't see even her or even them as a couple.
Yeah,
so that's what
flashback.
Yeah, but that's why I think it's done really well. Like even with very little, it does. It says a lot, And I think they do that a lot with the films.
And I found this film hilarious as well.
Oh,
Absolutely
really
hilarious, especially when Miles is figuring out his powers and the fact that he accidentally web shoots Peter Parker, and then they're being chased by the police, and then they get attached. Somehow get attached to the train.
To a train, yeah.
And
what was it? Spider-Man is swinging with a dead homeless guy.
Yeah, they report on the radio.
Yeah. That was hilarious. I loved as well when he got his powers and it was built up to this big thing, because it always is in a Spider-Man film, and the God knows how many reboots they've done. Whenever he gets bit, it's a big thing. And then Miles gets bit, and you see all these changes in his DNA, and he just knocks it over. I just think that got a hell of a laugh in the audience we were in. It's just amazing. It subverts a lot of expectations, but I think in a really good way.
Yeah. So, what would you give it out of 10?
I would give the screenplay a 9. Oh,
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably 9 as well. There's not a lot to fault it, really. Should we go on to acting? So, voice acting in this case.
Yeah. Except for Spider-Pig, I suppose.
What's wrong with Spider-Pig?
No.
Pig prejudice here. So Miles is played by Shameik Moore.
That's the one.
Is the actor. Total newcomer, I think. I don't think I know him from anything else.
Yeah, I saw him as I said.
In the Get Down.
Yeah, I've seen him in the Get Down. Yeah,
Right.
It's on Netflix.
But yeah, I thought he was great.
Yeah,
and also the Kingpin was really cool as well.
Yeah, he was cool, but huge,
unrealistically
huge.
Faithful to the comics. Though. He's drawn like that. I'm pretty sure.
I don't think I've ever seen him that big. He was pretty bloody big.
Quite brave, I think.
But it was
writing
amazing.
him in, because he's traditionally a Daredevil villain. You had Kingpin played very successfully by Vincent D'Onofrio in the Netflix Marvel TV shows,
and he was in and also Kingpin was the main villain in.
They may have been worried
in Ben Affleck's.
They may have been worried of confusion there. Why is he in this? But I think because audiences are so used to just a universe of characters now in Marvel.
Well, I mean, I was going back down to it. I think I mentioned this when we watched the film, but Kingpin is a Spider-Man villain. Basically, has always been. He's more of a case of he started as a Spider-Man villain. He was only a Spider-Man villain, and then it was more of a case of Frank Miller when he started to write for Daredevil. Yeah, so when Frank Miller started to write for Daredevil, who wasn't doing so good at the time, he basically gave Daredevil his feel, the sort of gritty noir sort of feel that Daredevil has. And the first villain he introduced was Kingpin, and he made him a Daredevil villain. But it was more like he was a Spider-Man villain going into a Daredevil comic. Yeah. But he just kept him around. Yeah. Exactly. He plays Sabretooth, doesn't he? But they kind of just kept him around, and he became Daredevil's arch enemy. So, that's where the whole rights issue goes in, because it's a Sony film, and they only have rights to characters who are Spider-Man characters or affiliated with Spider-Man. And Kingpin is and isn't. He is, because he is a Spider-Man villain, but he became a Daredevil. Yeah, so it's kind of shared rights there.
And Chris Pine's in it as well as the blonde Parker. Peter Parker.
Yeah, that surprised me when his voice came out.
Yeah, I was like, hang on a minute.
Yeah,
that Peter Parker.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Chris. Of course, it's Chris Pine. Is that Chris Pine?
Because the trailer as well. I was like, the trailer was done with the guy who played blonde brunette Peter Parker, and I thought maybe he'd been switched or something.
Oh, right.
I didn't know what was going on. Yeah, also, I was shocked that he died on screen. That was crazy.
Yeah, I didn't expect
that was pretty dark. Yeah, he got crushed. Wow, that was insane. And then also, I do like the foreshadowing,
Yeah.
And so you get the original Spider-Man was crushed violently by the Kingpin. And then at the end fight, which is also really cool and trippy as hell, where you've got a train from a different universe coming in and all these buildings, and it's
so colourful.
Whoa, yeah, so colourful. Purple, pink, just buildings coming in, trains, like the bridge. There's a Brooklyn Bridge, and it was insane. And they're fighting around all of this. Kingpin slams him as hard as he did to Spider-Man, and it was like, oh my god. And then it's good that that was just a really good scene.
Yeah. So
especially also the shoulder touch, you incorporating the shoulder.
Oh
touch
yeah, that was so funny.
That was funny.
Well, even the voice acting with that, it was kind of cool.
Yeah, but basically learning from his uncle how to kick his ass.
Yeah. So what would you give it?
Voice acting. A lot of the actors did a really good job. Yeah, I think they did a tremendous job. Yeah, 8 maybe.
I think that all the performances are great, really. I didn't really see a fault in any of them, really. And also Nick Cage is in it, which is always a bonus point.
Oh, man, as the noir Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
They need to do a series of him. That was amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
I just love how...
Aren't they doing a Spider-Pig one?
They should just do a film for each of them.
I love the fact that they've done a noir one just to...
It's like a Batman parody, basically.
Yeah, well, just to reference film noir films in general, I think is great. For a young audience to maybe discover why is this character like this. Well, look at all these great films from the 40s, 50s, and etc. So yeah, I'd only maybe give it a 7 because obviously it is just voice acting. I know how strenuous it is, but most of this film is all about the directing and the animation, I would say. So I would probably just give it a 7 as well. Harsh, but gotta have some varied scores here. Right, directing. I think this film is incredibly well directed. I've never seen an animation style like this before, ever, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think going to a 2D animation style with kind of like blurring out the backgrounds and making the 2D characters kind of like pop out a bit more. It's just a really refreshing style.
Yeah. Definitely I haven't seen anything that looks like that.
No. Because I tried to get into the Star Wars animated stuff, and I just can't get into it. I think it's probably because of the animation style of that kind of 3D stuff, the Clone Wars and stuff. But I'm like, but with this, bring on loads more sequels, man. Yeah. I want to see this.
I want to see this.
And I think the way it uses split screen as well sometimes was really cool, because I traditionally do not like split screen stuff, but I didn't mind it in this at all, just because it had such a strong comic book vibe.
Yeah, it's kind of expected.
Style. Yeah. So I really liked it. What about you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, especially also sometimes when there's sound effects, I quite like that as well, where you see things are exploding and you see the I think that's amazing.
With the lettering.
Yeah, the lettering. Yeah. I thought that was really good.
Yeah,
it's just all these little things, and you're like, oh man, it doesn't really draw you out, but it makes you appreciate what they're and makes you remember. Oh yeah,
this is based on a comic.
This is based on the comic book. Yeah,
not real life. No one can swing. Whips.
Yeah. Man, that design for Green Goblin was crazy. I think that's probably the design I
didn't get that was Green Goblin at first.
I think that was the design I liked the least, because it was just a bit nuts. It's just like
not Kingpin. It looks just a big black blob with a tiny head.
Yeah. But it was like he was like 50 foot old, like Green Goblin. That was a bit crazy.
Yeah. Any favourite scenes?
Oh man, there's so many. That's the thing. That's why I like it so much, because you can just think of so many good scenes. I like when they're basically all going to die, and they've been trapped by Dr. Octopus and all this stuff, and then out of nowhere, but Miles is got in control of his powers and just invisibly kicks the shit out of her, and then comes out of nowhere. Yeah. I love it when I thought it was like anticlimactic, but really funny and kind of cool. After they have like a hard fought battle, all of them against Dr. Octopus, and she's coming at them, and you're like, oh, here we go, and then she gets hit by a bus. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah.
It'd
be interesting what new villains they come up with in the next one.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose if you
are making another film.
Yeah, so. I suppose if you carry on with the thing of going through different universes and all that stuff, you can have so many different versions of the characters and the villains and stuff.
So, what score would you give directing?
I'll give that a 9. I reckon.
Yeah. I would probably go 9 as well. I think because the animation style is so unique and works so well. I know Pixar do a great job, but we're kind of used to that 3D animation now. They haven't particularly done anything new. I haven't seen Soul yet, which will be interesting to see, but they might do some new things there. But with this, just great. I want more now. So I would go 9 as well.
Nice.
So overall, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse gets 51 points, which blows Spider-Man 2 out the water, really, by
It's dethroned
9 points.
Dethroned the king of Spider-Man movies.
Spider-Man
I
2
think.
gets 42, and Into the Spider-Verse gets 51.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of do like a leaderboard maybe in future episodes, and we can tell you guys what's number 1 and what's at the bottom and all that. That's it for this week's pod. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to find out more about the podcast or suggest future topics for us to discuss, you can find us on Instagram at Film vs. Film Podcast and on Twitter at FVF_podcast. See you on the next one. Pod signing off. Thank you.